Hello and welcome everybody to another one of these things. I hope you're all doing well out there, and I appreciate your visit. I always appreciate your visit. Anyway, I'll start this episode like I start all my episodes recently, and that's apologizing for how long it's taken to get this video out. I know it's no excuse that I've been busy. There's a lot of busy people putting videos out, and I can't seem to manage it. Anyways, here we are, and you've probably gathered from the title that this one is an old-fashioned shootout, and this time between these two lenses behind me. But let me give you a bit of a background on how I came to make this video and why I'm looking at these two lenses. So it starts sad and then it gets happy, and I'll get into it. So the sad part is that I'm going to be selling this place that I've lived and worked for over 20 years. It's been a fantastic place. It's a historic industrial building from the Victorian era here in beautiful downtown Toronto. And I'm not leaving the city. I'm still going to be here downtown, just in a different neighborhood. My girlfriend Mar is also selling, and we're going to be combining forces and moving in together, which is very exciting. And it also means that this background is going to change a little bit too, and which is also exciting, changing things up around here that way. Anyway, so naturally, selling my place means I'm going to want to shoot a nice real estate video, maybe do some photos too, although I'll probably be getting my photographer friend to come in and shoot those photos. But I will be doing the video, and I figured why not do a bit of a test between these two lenses I've been looking at. Two lenses that are very popular amongst people doing real estate photography and video. And so the reason that I originally had gone full frame was so I could start shooting with lenses where I'm getting the actual focal length that is written on the lens, the full frame equivalent, right? Shooting full frame. So when I moved from APS-C, I was really looking forward to start shooting a lot wider, because at the time there weren't a lot of wide angle lenses available on the APS-C system. And boy, have things changed. Now you can get lenses that are equivalent to those ultra wides that you'll find in the full frame world. And that is part of the reason I thought that it would be kind of a neat thing for everybody to see me do head-to-head against these two particular lenses, these lenses being two of the most popular lenses in this space. So there'll be those of you who remember that I did a video about another wide angle lens not too long ago, and that's the 18mm 2.8 from Samyang. And the reason I did that video was sort of to put a spotlight on that lens, because I thought it really wasn't getting the credit that it was due for the fact that it's a fantastic lens for traveling. For those of you who want a wide angle lens and maybe do a little bit of vlogging, just because of that focal length on a full frame camera is perfect as far as an arm's length distance if you're holding your camera out. I was saying in that video I probably wouldn't get rid of that lens unless there was something equivalent, probably something equivalent weight-wise that was maybe wider, because everything else performance-wise was fantastic on that lens. I say was because I did sell that lens, and I was saying in that video, I think I was saying in that video, I probably wouldn't sell that lens ever. But I did get rid of that lens. As much as I like buying a camera equipment, and I don't like hoarding stuff, I just like changing things. And which brings me to the fact I might actually move away from full frame. Change for me personally, as far as camera equipment goes, is usually a good thing, because it inspires me to go out and shoot some photographs, shoot some video, and try and see what I can create with this new piece of gear. And usually that piece of gear is a new lens, and that's because lenses have such an impact, of course, on the way things look. Now, the reason I haven't been changing out my camera too often, and I've had like a dozen cameras, the reason I haven't been changing out my camera lately, for years in fact, is because the A7C, which was, I'm shooting with it right now, has inspired me so much to shoot just looking at it. I mean, it's a gorgeous camera, and whenever I look at my camera, I just feel like picking it up and going to do something with it. But this camera that I'm shooting with now, the A7C, I've probably had the longest out of all my cameras, besides the camera that I originally started shooting with. this old Minolta. This is the camera that started it all for me, really. I did have other cameras, a point and shoot camera my parents gave me as a kid, but my dad bought one of these before we went to Hawaii back in 1979, and it ended up the camera that I used all through high school and college in photography. And so there you go. So a camera that did get me excited when it came out was the FX3. But what advantage would an FX3 be for a guy like me? I do want the 10-bit, and I do like those video options because I am a video-centric shooter. Downside, 12 megapixels. That wasn't gonna cut it as far as my photography interests go. And it's just gonna make everything even heavier because the camera itself is heavier than the camera I'm shooting with now, and I'm still gonna be shooting with full frame lenses, shooting with that camera. And along comes the FX30. It's a little bit lighter, still heavier than my A7C, but a little bit lighter than the FX3. And the FX30 is of course, APS-C sensor, which would allow me to take full advantage of the tiny APS-C lenses that are out there. So look at the physical difference between these lenses. It's crazy. Now, how do you even compare these two? What are the optical sacrifices you're making going from this to this? Well, you're not really. It's not a direct comparison because this has to cover a full frame sensor and this only has to cover an APS-C sensor. And Laowa has taken full advantage of that. Look at the diminutive size of that barrel. I mean, it is tiny and it is packed full of glass. One of the reasons it is packed full of glass is because it's a rectilinear lens, so there's some engineering wizardry that have gone into designing the optics in this lens. So that is one reason it's heavy. And it's not really shedding much as far as weight goes, given the fact it has no autofocus. It's still a heavy little lens. Much closer to this than one would imagine, although this is obviously still quite a bit heavier. Let me show you the front lens element on this thing. Hopefully we can get it to focus. You can't put screw-on filters on that. Now let me give you a closer look at the Laowa here and give you a look at that front element, if it will focus. Yeah, I think I can get it to focus. There we go, right. It's a 49mm filter thread, which is, yeah, fantastic. Now, I've got an ND for that, because sometimes I like using that the 180 rule and getting the motion blur and stuff like that. And I also like doing long exposures. So why has the comparison between these two lenses become so relevant? This is a full frame lens and this is an APS-C lens. Shouldn't they be mutually exclusive of one another? Well, no, of course not, because you've got cameras like mine, a full frame camera like the A7C, many other full frame cameras that also have the ability to shoot in APS-C mode or Super 35 mode. So you can take advantage of the smaller APS-C lenses. They're really only an advantage now shooting with video, and that's what this is. It's a video comparison between using these two lenses, because if you were to use this for photography on your camera, your full frame camera, you'd be sacrificing a lot of megapixels. Now, if you've got one of those high megapixel cameras and you don't mind shedding some megapixels by shooting with only the center of your sensor, well, that's fine. Then you can go ahead and take a look at this for photography as well. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Why spend all that money for a high resolution camera and not use it, right? So this, of course, being a 9mm f2.8 means it's a 13.5 equivalent on full frame. And this, of course, a full frame on full frame, it's 14 is a 14. So this should be 0.5 millimeter wider than this. Okay, let's see how these two compare. So let me give you a bit of a heads up on how I'm going to do this. I'm going to be doing the same shots twice, of course, one with the Samyang, one with the Laowa. That's going to be, of course, on my A7C, and the A7C is going to be on this RS3 Mini gimbal that's new to me. So I'll probably be doing a video about it sometime in the near future, but I won't be just using the gimbal for at least one of these shots. I'm going to also be using this monopod to simulate a bit of a crane shot. Anyway, just to give it a little bit more visual interest. So let's get to it. So for the entire duration of this comparison, I'll be shooting both lenses fixed at infinity and an aperture between f8 and f11. That sort of evens the playing field between the Laowa and the Samyang, because the Laowa is a manual focus only lens. So as you can see, these two lenses really are comparable to each other when shooting video, provided of course you're shooting the Samyang on a full frame camera. Now for those APS-C shooters who are looking for a ultra wide solution on their cameras, you really can't go wrong with the Laowa. It isn't a cheap lens for a manual focus lens, but focusing manually isn't really that difficult when you're looking at lenses that are this wide. Those people, of course, that only shoot video when they shoot ultra wide on a full frame, the advantages of going with the Laowa, of course, are the weight and size. But if you are going to be taking photographs, you have to take into account that you will be losing a lot of resolution if you plan on using the Laowa on a full frame camera. For those APS-C shooters who are into landscape photography or need an ultra wide for photography, again, the Laowa is going to fit the bill pretty perfectly. From other tests I've seen from other YouTubers, you don't really see it in my comparison, but the Laowa is a bit sharper in the corners, actually a fair bit sharper in the corners through the range on the compared to the Samyang. So you probably noticed that the Laowa is probably more than 0.5 millimeter wider than the Samyang. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Is it that the Samyang is actually a little narrower, or maybe the Laowa is a little wider than quoted? Well, anyway, I hope you got something out of this one as usual. If so, leave me a thumbs up. If not, that's okay too. Why don't you share some of your experiences with your wide angle? What are you shooting with? What ultra wide are you shooting with? Are you using one of these two lenses? Have you done this comparison yourself? Leave that in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. I do appreciate those who have subscribed. So keep working to make your chosen idea a reality. Until next time, peace.